my name is Nathan Martin, and I am the artistic director of Dark Force Theatre Company.
Tell me about Dark Force Theatre Company, why it's been formed.
Um, Dark Forest came about last year. I had returned from living in China for about 5 years to become an actor and a theatre maker. And I had done it well for about 2 years in Belfast, but I was wanting to have more control over the roles that I was getting, more control over what I was creating. So I created my own show, A Filthy Dirty Rumor, which turned out to be a huge success. It was a sellout. Reviews were incredible for it. So it was really the springboard or the diving board for Dark Forest, because after that, then I started to create um, my own work.
We all live in rumours, we all love a bit of gossip. What was the filthy, dirty rumour?
A Filthy Dirty Rumor was set in 1950s Belfast, and it was about a married couple who get a new lodger, a female lodger, and the wife's sister oversees the wife and the female lodger embraced in a moment, and she misconstrues this as a lesbian affair. And she, through wishing to help her sister, tells people what she has seen, and the entire story sort of snowballs from there, and sort of the consequences for everyone involved are detrimental.
And set in the 50s is a very different attitude to that particular subject than there is today, say.
Mm. Well, I wanted to set it in 19. Everything that Dark Forest has done has always been set in Ireland or Northern Ireland. It's always been set in this country, because I feel like our stories should be told as much as possible. And I had set it in 1950s Belfast, mainly because the issues that were put on display in the play were issues that people in the LGBT community still face today. I didn't want them to see themselves as a mirror. I wanted a gap between what they were seeing. So I used time to sort of showcase that gap.
So, back to yourself. You're definitely not born in China. You're actually born in Lurgan.
Yeah, yeah. Not born in China. That's not what the birth certificate says, but I am from Craigavon Hospital, so that birth certificate could be incorrect. Who knows?
You're not going for American president, are you?
No, no, not yet, not yet. But there are rumors. Yeah, no, I'm from Lurgan. I grew up from Quilkey area, and then my family now are living out Castor Bay Road. So
So,
yeah.
so the idea of loving Lurgan, because that's what this radio program is about, that's what Love Lurgan is about. What's your attitude to Lurgan? What's the attitude that you hear from others?
I love Lurgan. I'm like when I lived away and I had maybe one or two drinks in me, people used to say, "Where are you from?" And I used to say Lurgan. I never said like Northern Ireland or Armagh. I was always like, "I'm from Lurgan," expecting them to know. Um, I've always loved it. I think Lurgan is fantastic. I think the people of Lurgan are fantastic people. I think because I'm from there, I know Lurgan sometimes gets a bit of a bad reputation, but the people who are from Lurgan appreciate it, and I think they're very grateful that they're from there, because Lurgan people are unique in their own way. We have an incredible sense of humor, and we have an incredible resilience to a lot of things. Lurgan people always seem to be able to mostly take care of themselves and to find humor in nearly every situation that they're in. So yeah, I think it's a great time.
So where did the journey, this journey to resilience, if you like, take you? Because you didn't start off being a theatre director or the like.
Do you mean sort of my career
Well,
or
career life, whatever it might be called.
um
I career from one place to another. That's the career means to me. What did it mean to you?
um I think I've always sort of come back to Lurgan. So I went to St Michael's, and then I went to Belfast Met, and then after Belfast Met I went to uni in London, and then I came back to Lurgan for a year. and then I moved over to China, and I was there for about 5 years,
So
and
was
then
it
I came
all
back.
was it always theatre along that route, or have you changed route?
No, no, I was sort of a jack of all trades, just sort of going where the opportunities took me. So I had wanted to be an actor since I was a kid, and I had sort of toyed with the idea, and I sort of dipped my toes in and out of um, like theater groups. So I had done like the Lyric when I was like 16, 17. Um, when I was 17, the TV show Skins had like a second series. And I asked my parents if I could go over to London and audition, and they said absolutely not. So I booked a flight myself and told them that I was staying at my friend's house for the weekend, and went to London by myself at like, must have been 16, 17, and went to the audition and got a call back. And then I went home, and my mother found my plane ticket in my backpack, and I was grounded, and I wasn't allowed to go to the callback because she was so angry.
But at
So
least you put a shot out there.
I know, I know. After that, I learned to get rid of the evidence. Um, but yeah, I'd sort of always toyed with it, but I was never really serious about it until I moved to China, and I joined an amateur group.
And was it with the full purpose of doing that? And why China?
I had initially wanted to go to Japan, but um, I have tattoos. And when I went to the job interview, they had said, with tattoos, we don't hire people who wear them, who have them for sort of professional reasons. So I had saved up a good bit of money, and I knew someone from Lurgan who had moved to China. He was living in Beijing. So I asked him, how did you get that job? And he got me in contact with a recruiter, and I was supposed to be there for 1 year. I ended up staying for 5 because I loved it so much.
And what sort of roles were you given? Were you always the Westerner, or did you get to play a Chinese person, or did that matter?
I never got to play a Chinese person. There was enough Chinese people for them to take the roles of a Chinese person. Um, we in the amateur dramatic group, it was called Powwow. It was a similar vein almost to Dark Forest because it was a collective of people who created their own work and created their own stories and directed and wrote and starred in it. So it went on for about 4 years. And then we did 2 productions a year. And I stayed with them until I realized actually I want to pursue this full time. I've sort of put it on the back burner long enough. So I'm going to go back home and do this.
So you came back, set up the theatre group, and the rest is a fairly short history, but a history that's working.
Yeah, yeah. So Filthy Dirty Rumor was, I think, March of 2023. So in that year and a half, really, that Dark Forest has been there, it has developed an incredible reputation. I'm very, very proud of the work that I've done. I'm very proud of the reputation the company has. Um, we work with some incredible creatives in the Northern Ireland theatre scene. And I think the company has a reputation for excellence. We put a lot of effort into our social media looks. We put a lot of effort into creating a world for people to come into. Um, so it has been a short history, but one that has been pretty successful.
Was there an inevitability that you'd come back to one of your works to make it and centre it around Lurgan? Was that fairly obvious to you in early days? Why, for example, have you come to produce Marjorie's Dead?
It was never, I, when I created the company, I never thought within 2 years I'd be doing a play about Marjorie McCall. It wasn't really at the forefront of my mind. It had sort of come about because I had put in for Belfast 2024 their bank of ideas, and it had to be centered on something about history or something about the country. And being from Lurgan, I've always been fascinated with the story of Marjorie McCall. So I wanted to do something about where I'm from and sort of my own history and my own history of my town. Um, for Belfast 2024, I didn't get it. Um, for very good reasons. Ideas were selected, but a lot of the ideas were focused on people now and issues now. So, for example, one of the ideas was holistic therapy for refugees. Another idea was flower therapy for people with severe learning disabilities, which affected communities in the present. Marjorie McCall has been dead for a few hundred years, so I wasn't that upset that I didn't get it. Um, but from that, Lurgan Townscape Heritage saw the media posts and got in contact with me, and a local historian, Isabel Highlands, as well, got in contact with me. And together, we sort of thought, you know what, let's, instead of having this in Belfast, let's bring it to Lurgan and showcase the story to local people.
So did you have to do lots and lots of research, or did you make it up as you went along?
Um, I think I had a lot of help from Isabel. You know, she's been Isabel is a local Lurgan historian, and she has sort of given me a wealth of information. Um, there is not that much information out there about Marjorie McCall. I think what someone had said to me was obviously after the famine and stuff, a lot of information had been lost. So there's not that much about her, but we are not doing a historical play. We're doing a historical adaptation. So I've used the main skeleton of the story. The story is still there in the play, but the sheathing in will be a different sort of avenue that people haven't thought of.
But it's a dark play. At least that's the interpretation I would take between the title of your company and the actual story and material.
It is a dark play. Dark Forest, the sort of MO of the company is that we tell authentic stories and we do authentic storytelling. And we take people to ideas and areas that maybe they have not thought of. Um, so Marjorie's dead. I didn't want to use died once, buried twice. I wanted to make this our own version of this story. So that's why the title is a little bit different. It is a dark play in certain themes, but it's not too dark that you couldn't bring children to watch it. It has been made for the community, so it's not so dark that you couldn't bring kids to see it. But the tone of it and the themes of it are serious in areas, but there's areas that we have made purposely comedic.
We're talking about showing this towards the end of the month. What's the 19th, 20th, 21st? I'll give the dates later to be sure, to be sure. But it's around Halloween.
Mhm.
There's that kind of subtle darkness, and that was it chosen to be produced at this time of year, or is that just coincidental?
It's just coincidental. It's just coincidental. I was away for a long time, traveling, and then when I came back, sort of October, November was when I was able to sort of give this as much attention as possible. Because when you get into November, most creatives, including myself, are gearing up for the Christmas season and Christmas shows. Um, I think it's fitting that it's this time of year, but it wouldn't be a Halloween show. Um, that's not what we're sort of aiming for. But I think that having it around this time of year has been a good coincidence. But for example, next year we're bringing the show to Belfast and it's in February, so it's fitting, but it wasn't selected to be a Halloween production.
How would you describe it to someone who doesn't really know too much about the story? And that seemed to be hard enough to find in Lurgan. We all seem to have grown up with this, not quite fairy tale, but this particular story.
Mm.
And give us an idea of how you've cast it thereafter.
I think how you describe the story is something that is interesting. You know, it's interesting that in the 17th, 18th century, you know, grave digging was actually a form of employment, and this is how people made their money. So I think it's interesting to note that the grave diggers who go for the wedding ring, they weren't
Grave
misplaced in
robbers, grave
yeah,
robbers, perhaps, rather than
yeah,
diggers.
yeah, grave robbers, and they weren't misplaced in society. You know, it wasn't that rare a coincidence. So I think describing the story as grave robbers going to make their living by stealing from the dead is pretty much the story in a nutshell. And obviously, they get more than they bargained for when they go to cut off her ring. Um, and what was the second question there, Donna?
Just who's in the cast and what are the performances we can expect?
So we hired professional actors. So Anina Watton will be playing the role of Marjorie, and Matthew O'Leary will be playing the role of John McCall, her husband. And then we have Anna Conway. She is from Derry McCash. She will be doing stage management, and then I'm the artistic director. So two of us are from Lurgan, and two of us are not. Anina and Matthew are not from the town, and I think it's been interesting to bring outsiders in to learn about the story. We've been very lucky that, again, Isabel Highlands took us around Shankill Graveyard and sort of give us history and showed us local stories, things that I never knew about. And then just yesterday, we were at Brownlow Castle where we will have a performance, and James Martin there, the head tour guide, gave us again further information on the Brownlow history. So just even from someone who's from the town, there was a lot of information that I learned, which I find very interesting.
So this is going to be a premiere, we take it, and it's going to be in Lurgan.
Mhm.
How do you feel about that? Your work right up there in front of folks that you know.
I'm happy enough. I'm happy enough. I'm very proud of what I've done. I'm very proud of the company, and I'm very proud of where I've come from. People from the local community have already travelled to Belfast to see my work before. Um, my mother is part of a women's community group, and they've been to nearly every show that I've done. So no, I'm very proud to be able to put on display what the company can create, and I'm very proud to showcase a local story to local people. And I'm actually very grateful that Lurgan Townscape Heritage give me the opportunity to do this, because I think it's important, because my nephews and my niece are at an age where they actually don't know the story of Marjorie McCall, and I think if we don't keep these stories alive, we are going to lose them. So I'm very proud to have the premiere in Lurgan.
It almost seems rude of me to ask. You haven't the one performance given. Where do you go to next? Which is what everybody wants to know. You've done this, you've set it up there. Will it continue along this historic theme style, or where do you take the next batch of plays that you do?
Um, I think I always wait to see sort of what I wish to create or what stories sort of inspire me. Next year, we are going to continue with the Marjorie's Dead play. It will be going to Belfast for a run. And then after that, I'm just going to wait and see what I'm inspired by and what I sort of want to create. I sort of have a theme that when I do a production, I do a run of it, and then I sort of move on to the next production, which is not what everyone does. A lot of people continue with a production for 1 or 2 years, but I continue to want to work with as many creatives as possible. So after the second run of Marjorie's Dead, there's a lot that the company can do, but I'm just focused on this production for the moment.